This is the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd. If you're looking to generate wealth and passive income in the lucrative world of mobile home parks, you're in the right place. You'll discover solutions to the common legal and operational pitfalls and how to optimize parks to maximize income. Your host is in the trenches. He's a real estate attorney, financial analyst, and mobile home park investor and operator. Now, let's turn it over to Ferd.
Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd here again today. Today I'm continuing my little mini-series on case studies. These are deals that I've actually worked on and lessons can be learned from them. So I'm not going to go over every deal, but go over different types of deals. Previous episode, I covered the first project I ever bought. And just kind of the blocking and tackling. You know, if you go to the Frank and Dave boot camp, it's the typical, light CapEx, infill, sub-meter, increase rents a little bit, buy it right, sell it right, get a little bit of cash flow in the interim. Now, I brought in a number of homes, bought and renovated some homes, so I had some home sales in there that really is not part of the typical model of actually owning the homes. A lot of people don't want to own the homes. That did increase my profit on that deal. Just it required me to grow slow, so it's not always the best approach, and it's definitely harder to do if the park is not in your own backyard. I bring up that deal as we move into the next one, but I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention in the last episode because I'm just kind of winging this here, and be honest, is how I found the deal and how I sold the deal. Just I thought that would be helpful. And that deal my dad found was in our hometown of Quincy, and he basically just went to every park in the town and in the region and said, "Hey, you want to sell?" And most of them said, not just no, but hell no. These are cash cows. So we just kept looking. And finally we found one, and we actually, we're not very good negotiators apparently, or weren't at the time, but the guy said, "I want $680. We said, "How about $675? And he said, "Deal." And then when it came time to write the contract, he said, "I need $695 to pay the taxes or something." So we said, "Deal." And we bought it pretty much at retail. It was off market, but we bought it pretty much at retail, but we still made several $100,000 on that deal. So still well worth it, right? So today's deals, I'm going to just kind of jump into two smaller deals that I did about the same time, also back in that Western Illinois, Northeast Missouri market. The first one was south of Quincy, Illinois, my hometown. It was a little bit rural. It was out on a county road. Like, for example, my road costs were none. It was a county road. No curbs, no gutters. There was a small gravel drive for the mailboxes. This was just a small part. It was 18 pads. There were 14 occupied lots at purchase. And then we bought it in 2016, sold it about 18 months later. So not a very long holding period. So you may ask why. So let's talk first about the lessons that we're going to learn on this. And the lessons learned was just light imperv curb appeal, increase occupancy minimally, increase rents, and really just avoid the downside. And that'll be part of the sale. So the reason we bought it, the reason we bought it right, we bought this for $295,000. It appraised for about $500,000. I didn't really believe it was worth $500,000, but I thought it was worth about $400,000 at the time I bought it. So it was a pretty good discount, 25-30% discount. It was on market. And what's interesting about this, it was on market by a local real estate broker who had owned it and operated it for several years. Dad was a realtor at the time, worked under this guy's brokerage firm, and this guy hired Dad to manage it in his spare time because he knew he had a different one. So Dad was managing it. So we already knew about the park, managed it for over years, so we knew where the bodies were buried, if any. But the guy, he was a successful realtor and he didn't want to own a mobile home park anymore. So he decided to sell it. But here's where he made a mistake. Interestingly, as a broker, he listed it for sale as land. The local MLS required you to list stuff as single family, multifamily, or land. Because there was no structures, he thought, well, this is basically land. Well, guess how many people go looking for trailer parks in the land listings? Not very many. The only people looking for land are people that want to buy farm ground or hunting ground or potentially development ground. And this was not any of the above. It was a small pad parcel. So it was listed improperly. Had he listed as multifamily, the people who were looking for 8-plexes and 12-plexes and stuff would have stumbled upon it, and he probably would have got it bought. So he listed it at like $535,000, and it didn't move. And he lowered it $5,000 a week And when it got down to $295, we said we'll take it, and we got it bought. Interestingly, because it appraised well, we only had to put about $20,000 into this project. So I bought a $300,000 trailer park with 18 pads for $20,000 down. Now, why'd I sell it? I sold it in a short time period later, and I sold it as part of a 2-park portfolio, and I sold it for $420,000. So made about $125,000. Really, by the time I had some home sales in there, a little bit of cash flow, I made closer to like $175,000, $185,000, which was really good from a cash on cash. It was an equity multiple over 10. I only put $20,000 in this thing. The reason I sold it was the lagoon. Didn't know much about lagoons time we bought it. It was a 3-stage lagoon, and we had a licensed engineer that monitored it, and there were no problems. The state of Illinois would come and inspect it every 5 years, really, with the permit would get renewed. But they supposedly do an inspection every 1 year. But honestly, I don't think they did it. I think they just did it from their desk, because they would come by and send us a list of violations and be like, abandoned vehicle number 9. It'd actually be at like number 109. I'm like, there is no 109, and there's no abandoned vehicles, and they never came back to like re-inspect. There were violations like that, like tall grass on number 5. I think it was just some bureaucrats sitting at their desk pretending to do their job. Those were the annual inspections. So why did I get rid of it? Well, I went to the Frank and Dave boot camp. Oh, it would have been, I think it was Labor Day 2017. So I'd already owned a couple parks. I think I already owned 3 parks at the time. And at that boot camp, I kind of got scared of lagoons, to be honest, because I realized this one was out in the country, and Illinois was high regulation. And I thought, if the state of Illinois ever comes around and says, we elitists in Chicago think that lagoons are yucky and all them rural folk ought to convert to city sewer, I'm kind of stuck, because the city is several miles away, city sewer is several miles away, and it would cost many multiples of the value of the park to have to convert. And I also realized that my upside was limited. I had filled the park, so it was now 18 out of 18. It had 6 park-owned homes. It was 11. We got it down to 6. But they were nice park-owned homes, 2 and 3 years old. The previous guy had bought several of those nicer ones. We brought in some older used ones. And I was like, I'm not going to really get much more out of this. It's never going to be, a 5-cap play because of size, because lagoon. It's never going to be agency debt because less than 50 pads. So I thought, you know what? My upside is limited and my downside is significant. So going back to the Sam Zell risk-reward analysis, I was like, there's a lot of risk if this, maybe a low probability that I need to convert to lagoon, but high pain point if it does. So we decided to sell it. Sold it to a couple guys out of Chicago, nice guys who we still manage this park and the next one for these guys. And they've invested in some of my other syndications. And the parks had no problems, and the lagoons had no problems. So maybe I shouldn't have sold it. But at the time, I thought, you know what? I can make a 6-figure profit off a $20,000 investment in just over a year. And you know what? I'm gonna sleep easier at night, cut my downside. So the lesson learned was, take a couple chips off the table to reduce your risk, reduce your debt. All right, next deal. And how I sold that one, I told you how I found it from the realtor. We sold it. We put it on mobilehomestore.com, and these guys found it and sold it pretty quickly. I don't remember the cap rate at that time. I want to say it was like a 9, so it wasn't. We didn't get a great price. I think we left some money on the table, to be honest. But I was willing to do that because I wanted to get rid of that lagoon so fast, and we sold it super fast. But maybe I was too conservative, but it worked out. Another project nearby was in Canton, Missouri, small town. Bought this deal for about $181,000. How did I find this one? Ironically, my uncle owned it. He stumbled into it. He was a contractor who lived in that town, and he had a couple rentals, had a couple houses, and he just had this mobile home park. And I think he was getting tired of the maintenance. There were 16 occupied lots. No, there were 12 occupied lots. Excuse me. They were all park-owned homes. There are a total of 16 lots. 12 were occupied. Bought it for about $180,000. I had to put about $40,000 in. Basically down payment, and a little bit of other costs, but it was really low entry. I sold this one about 6 months later, and I sold it as part of the same sale as the previous sale to the guys out of Chicago. So why'd I sell it? And what was the lesson learned? I sold it fast because the city of Canton does not deserve me. The guy at my old law firm did a lot of development law, building shopping centers and apartment developments and big industrial buildings, all stuff. So we would tell. He said this to cities. He said, "Capital goes where it's welcome and stays where it's appreciated." And we would take big developers into these small towns, or not just small towns, but towns throughout the Midwest, and they wanted to feel like they were welcomed. Well, that's how I wanted to feel in Canton. Because I said, look, I'm going to put some money in this park. I'm going to fill the last couple lots. I'm going to paint all the houses. I'm going to fix up the park. And I'm going to, this is a small, not downtrodden perhaps, but kind of a downtrodden poor town. And I was going to improve this place. I mean, low-income housing was necessary. Put it this way. They allowed mobile homes on any city lot. So you didn't have to have a trailer park. You could just put it in a subdivision. Like, that's how loose the zoning code was and how loose the government restrictions generally were. So I was going to invest in this. But in order to fill the last 2 lots, last 4 lots, I had to bring in some homes, and I had to get a variance from the setback. On the backside of this park was an alleyway, and the alleyway was, 15 feet from the house. It was a small alley. Well, the setback was like 20 feet. And I was like, there's nobody back there but my alleyway, which I owned, and then there's no buildings next to it. So I said, I need to get a variance to bring in homes. And the city inspector said, no problem. City planning guy said, no problem. Mayor said, no problem. Well, the appraisal or something took long. I don't remember. We got an extension, and my uncle was not really that jazzed about giving us another extension. We were buying it. We thought it was a good price. He goes, look, buy it or don't. So we said, okay, we'll buy it. And I should have pushed harder for an extension. But what I did was we closed on the property without getting the variance. We trusted the government. Fatal flaw. Lesson learned is get your entitlements and get your necessary approvals, all that stuff, get your zoning squared away before you buy it. The zoning was good. I just needed, so it wasn't like I had no permit. To make this deal economically make that much sense for me, then I needed to get this variance. Well, we go before the Board of Zoning Adjustment for the variance, and we get on the docket, and just so happens, bad luck for us, and bad luck more for someone else, as you'll hear in a second, there was another mobile home park right next door, and it was really crappy, and the homes were like right on top of each other. Some of them didn't have siding on them, like the insulation was visible from the outside. There was no skirting on some of them. It was a really junky park. Well, somebody in one of those homes was making meth or something, and they caught the home on fire, and they burned alive. So obviously, worse news for them than me. But the bad news for me was the variance that I was requesting was going to make homes closer together. I also needed, I forgot to mention, an internal variance of, instead of 20 feet between homes, I needed like 16. And state fire code was like 15 or 10. So I was just like, I need to put these homes a little closer together. Not that much closer, but it was important. Well, now that somebody burned alive next door, they're like, why would we agree to let somebody put homes closer together so if one burns, they're all going to burn? And the mayor still supported this, but when the fire marshal stands up and says, if you approve this, people will die, you're toast. So the rest of the story was, the mayor said, may I have a motion to approve? Crickets. I guess it wasn't the Board of Zoning Adjustment, I think about it, because typically that's an administrative body, not the mayor, but it was the mayor, so it must have been in this town that the BZA was the same as the council, which is not completely uncommon, I guess, because it's a small volunteer council. Anyway, no motion, we lose. We're pissed. Dad was the one who was there, and the mayor apologized afterwards, so we say, you need to make this right. So we got back on the docket, whether 2 weeks or 4 weeks later, and this time, every single council member individually came and visited the property and walked through, here's the difference in size, all this. And we thought we had the votes. We think we had 5-2 or something. And came back on the docket, and the mayor assured us he was going to get it done. The mayor's not allowed to make a motion, typically under Robert's Rules of Order. So the mayor pro tem make the motion. Motion to approve. Is there a second? Crickets. We never even got the second. We never even got a vote. And we never got our entitlements. So we put the park for sale the next day. Ended up tying it in with the property I mentioned on this episode. And we sold it for $220,000. So still made $45,000. Not a bad day, but pretty disappointing. And that was one of a long line of examples of where I lost faith in bureaucrats. So we sold it the same, we don't even market it, we sold it to the same guys from the one that had been listed on mobilehomestore.com. So anyway, made a little money. The money was made basically by just buying it at a reasonable price and then selling it buying it for a discount and selling at a reasonable price. No magic on this one. This was really more of a pain point, but it was nice that this was the worst. I've done 20 plus projects at this point. This was the worst one, and I still made money. So knock on wood, if you buy right, you make your money when you buy. You get paid when you sell or when you refinance, in particular refinance with non-recourse debt. Until next time, hope you learned something today. Have fun, be safe, God bless.
You've been listening to the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. Ready to learn more? Go to www.themobilehomelawyer.com for free resources and materials to help you succeed. If you love the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, give us your review, and subscribe today. Thank you for listening. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.